Every filmmaker has a goal to work with the top brands in the world, from fashion to food. It's always been a dream to have your ideas seen on the big screen. But how do you even make a commercial for a potential dream client that you want to work with in the future? The process starts with SPEC. The proper steps need to be taken so that you don't fall into the common mistakes when creating work for yourself. In this video, I'm going to be going over the pre-production and production process on how we made a SPEC commercial for McDonald's. This project started in the simplest of ways, a conversation between the director, my partner, and I on work that we wanted to create. We were both at a point of redefining who we were as well as what we wanted to do in our careers. Her as a director and myself as a cinematographer. She wanted to create a commercial that represented what she remembered from her childhood and her relationship with her grandmother, especially with the tagline that sleepovers at grandma's house were always the best. I fully related with this, and I had the same experiences with my grandmother, and I was excited to get the ball rolling on making her ideas come to life. She came up with the entire pitch deck, and the project was sold to a production company because they saw the potential in her idea. This is where being intentional with your SPEC work comes into play, and especially knowing how to sell it. Having an idea was one thing, but the more important thing is how to target and sell it to the right people. This is all about packaging and showcasing how the commercial will look and feel. A big question you might have at this point is, where do you even start when looking at how a commercial is supposed to look and feel? This is a difficult process, but it can be made easy with a few simple steps. First, ask yourself, what are we shooting? For this case, we are creating a commercial that tells a heartwarming story of the relation between a grandmother and her granddaughter. You could go down two paths and look at movie-like ads where the story is told through naturalistic lighting, or the commercial looks that use a lot of wider lenses and high-key lighting. This ultimately relates to what you're creating, and for us, we wanted to create a 30-second ad that had the commercial feel. The second thing is analyzing what and who you're shooting the commercial for. This is a SPEC commercial that is targeted at McDonald's, so this is going to directly relate to the look and feel. After doing a ton of research, I saw the main look and feel was associated with a lot of warm color tones, constant camera movement, and a lot of specialized shots. This is where we're going to start looking at the pre-production process, and I'm going to show you my exact references, how I set the tone and approach for the cinematography side of things. Pre-production is the most important part of creating a successful piece of work. The pre-production tool I like to use in all my commercials is Milanote. We are going to be diving into the exact boards we use to plan this project and show you why Milanote is my favorite tool to use. And this is the board that we use for the project. Automatically, my favorite thing about Milanote is the organizational fact of it. I can just dive into any board and I can see already what exactly I want to dive into specifically. And what we're going to be starting with, obviously, is the cinematography side of things and establishing a mood board of what the project is supposed to look like. And here we have a bunch of photo references as well as visual references with camera movements and links that we just pasted in here. So what I like to do with the director is basically say, hey, can you send me 3 references that you really like, as well as pull some stills? Luckily, the director is also a cinematographer, so she knows this process inside and out. And then I can just easily move around this board and really dial in the exact look and feel that we're going for. And this was done by the director, and now it is my job as a cinematographer to really set the tone and approach. So this is when my research came in play with taking her references, and a lot of these are very film-like, and now we wanted to push this into the commercial world. Then if we go back to their main board, this is what I did with the color and lighting references, and this is what I was in charge for basically selling this project. And this had to do with a bunch of research. There's about probably, I would say, 5 different McDonald's commercials here, as well as some other references that I liked. And this is very important for any project to be aligned with what the project is supposed to feel and look like. And this is from beginning of the project to the end, so everybody is aligned on what we're creating. And the big thing that I really like using Milanote for is the storyboarding as well as shot listing process. This was a very in-depth storyboard, and I'm going to zoom in here. And Milanote just allows you to do endless possibilities with really organizing your thoughts with a lot of visual cues. This is what I love about this tool specifically. For this project, this was my first time really shooting a storyboard to a T. In this case, we were following a direct story and following it shot by shot. So having an organized pre-production process was crucial to that. And Milanote really allowed that to happen. And then if we zoom out and look at this from a full, you can see that what we are going for with the direction of what these shots are supposed to look like, as well as other key points that other people are supposed to know. Like in this scene here, which is the first shots of the piece, this is supposed to feel like late afternoon, and that is highlighted throughout the whole piece. And then we could just even look at this and what are the key props supposed to be in the scene. And in this gardening scene that we have here from shot 11 through 14, we have this McDonald's drink. And then shot 7 through 9, we have this burger. And this just allows so many visual cues to everybody get on the same page and get aligned. Being aligned on a project, especially in the pre-production process, is the most important thing that you can do. And Milanote really allows you to do that. Prior to the location scout, the director already went through the process of vetting out all potential locations and landed on one that was perfect for the project. It was an old Victorian house just outside of the Toronto area that was renovated for the purpose of film productions. The house was already decorated in a beautiful red wallpaper that matched the identity of the brand we were shooting for. When it comes to the location scout, I always bring these 3 tools. Sunseeker to see where the sun is in each of the rooms I will be shooting in, CAD rays to visualize of what some of the shots will look like on the camera package that I'm going to be shooting on the day, a small camera, in this case the Sony FX3 with a 24 to 70 millimeter lens, so I can see what the project will look like and we can actually have a pre-visualization going into the next steps of this entire commercial. This is my go-to list that I've developed over time, and having the mindset of shooting a project before even stepping on set saved me many potential failures. This will allow me to see if the ideas will work or even not work. If you compare the previs to the actual project, you can see that we pretty much had all our shots flushed out before we even stepped on set. This gave me the confidence as a DP to execute on the ideas of the director, as well as bring on my own so I could elevate the project. In addition to the previs, another key takeaway is I could properly plan how the shots would take place, in which room, and work with the director and assistant director to figure out the most efficient way to shoot the project. This is also dependent on camera setup, rigging, lighting, talent, and so many other factors. With all the pre-production and information that we've done from the location scout, we could finally start executing on this big idea. This production was shot in the span of 2 days, the first being a pre-light and the second being the actual day of production. I know it can be seen as a luxury to have a pre-light for any production, but if you're trying to execute on something at a higher level, especially when there are so many moving parts, such as set design, lighting multiple rooms at once, and so many other factors, a pre-light is completely necessary. This first thing I like to do is load in all the gear and sort everything out with the key departments. And this is also the job of the producer or production manager on set. An organized space to work in from the beginning will set you up success for the entire production. I then walk through the location with a director and assistant director on how the day will look tomorrow and if there are any potential concerns. The camera we were shooting this project on was a Sony Venice paired with Zeiss Supreme Primes. In addition to that, we rented out a Ronin 2, which I'll be explaining later on in this video. As there were insert shots that the talent wasn't needed for, we planned to shoot this on the pre-light day as well. This was the main peephole shot that you see that introduced the entire piece. In addition to that, I shot some VFX assets on a pickup day back at my studio using the Sony FX3 as well as a probe lens. This was the in-between asset that was needed to travel through the peephole. It's important not to stress that you need to capture everything you need on the day. I've learned the hard way so many times that planning insert shots on the day is not necessarily a really good idea. If I can shoot this in a controlled studio environment, this will be much more comfortable and give me time to actually really be intentional with these shots. We moved on after getting the first shot to light the scene of the daughter meeting the grandma for the first time in the living room. As this was happening, the art department was decking other rooms in the house so we could move one room at a time so we would be ready for the shoot day. With our rooms decked and lit, there was a buzz of excitement in the air. Everyone was seeing the vision come to life, and we were 12 hours away from shooting this commercial. The start of any production day can feel intimidating and stressful. Still to this day, I go through these same exact emotions, and it's normal to feel like that. So much can go wrong, but so much can go right. And this is due to the work that is done in the pre-production process. 6 months of planning all relied on this day, and everybody was feeling ready. For this production, the first shot we started with was the introduction of both characters in the living room. A big question I would have at this point is, how do you even shot list a project like this? I based my shots on complexity in the camera setup as well as lighting. This was an interesting one because we shot this commercial in chronological order, which rarely happens. This was based on the time of day of the entire commercial. The granddaughter is going to the grandmother's house after school, so this is supposed to feel like daylight, almost afternoon sunlight coming through the windows. They then moved into an activity, in this case gardening, and this had the relatively same feeling with a bit of warmth. As we moved into the dinner, this was supposed to feel like an early dinner just as the sun was about to set, and then into the night with a midnight snack. This is exactly how we shot the project, but the complications started because the rigging needed to do some of the specialty shots as well as transitions. For the whips as well as over the table shots, we used a Ronin 2 as it would give me the most flexibility when getting these specific shots. The main stress that I ran into when scheduling all this was that I had to use the Ronin 2 back to back, so I would only have to set it up once as well as tear it down once. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but a proper flushed out pre-production process will optimize your production day so you don't have to run into problems like this. And this is exactly how the production was going. The director and I had multiple moments of joy as the shots were being executed just as everyone planned. This feeling was not just with us, but this was through the entire crew. At this point, we were in the sunroom and we used a combination of dolly movements and specialty shots to get the coverage we needed. To shoot the girl talking into the cup, we simply used a sheet of paper wrapped around the edge of the lens. The last shot in the scene was the use of the overhead T-bar setup and the Ronin 2 I talked about earlier. The way we achieved the whip up in the scene was by putting the camera in a tilted down position, and then as my grip dollied in, I used the recentering function to whip the camera up. We wanted these smooth transitions scene to scene, and this is my way of achieving this with the budget that we had. We then moved the setup down into the living room where we shot the most complicated series of shots in the piece. This was the burger reveal as well as the coverage of the grandma winking at the camera. There was a lot of prep and testing in these shots, and the director and I made a custom box that we used in this project. We did this because we found in our initial tests the original McDonald's packaging was too small, even if we cut the burger in half. We unfolded the box and took a top-down photo, and I brought this into CAD software so I could extend the length and reprint it ourselves. This gave us the perfect box to achieve the hero food shot of this piece. We then flipped the set to get the coverage of the grandma, and this is where the versatility of the Peri-Probe lens shines. Due to the nature of the lens, if you point it straight down with a 90-degree attachment, it allows you to get a normal perspective. This allowed us to give a sweeping and tilting motion over the table with the use of the Ronin 2's controller. After that was out of the way, we moved back to a tripod setup and got the rest of the shot of the scene. At this point, we were running behind schedule as this was a pretty ambitious commercial to get done in one day. We moved into the kitchen to set up the last series of shots. At this point, everyone was exhausted, but also determined to make every scene to be its best and cohesive to the story. With the last shot captured and a relief that we executed on everything that we planned on, that was a wrap on this McDonald's SPEC commercial. The first thing I learned from this project is the power of collaboration. The director had an idea, brought it to life because the collaborators of this project believe in her and saw her vision. This was done because of how the idea was communicated and properly presented. You can have an idea, and that idea can be the best in the world, but if you don't know how to sell it, it won't come to life. As a collaborator on this project, I was challenged as well as given free rein to make this project look as commercial and intentional as possible. That push and trust really allowed me to create the best piece of commercial work in my portfolio so far. This is the power of proper collaborators. Everyone got an amazing piece out of this, and that's the attitude that you have to have when creating work like this. The other lesson I learned from this is that the testing process is the most important when it comes to creating a successful and fluid commercial. I tried so many new things on this project, and I didn't just do this on the day of production. This was months, weeks, and days before I even stepped on set. I really hope that these lessons that I learned help you when you're creating work like this, or just creating work for yourself.